Hi, so for today's recipe, I thought I would talk you through or cook you through my go-to ragu recipe. I am using 2 packs or about 800 grams of minced beef on the left here and the same quantity of veal. You could use pork, beef, whatever you like. For every single ragu, I will always use carrot, celery and onion. And usually per pack or per 400 grams, I would use one onion, one large onion, one large carrot or 2 small ones, and one large stick of celery. Finely chopped like this. I'm going to quickly show you with an onion. If I can shimmy the board over or shimmy this over. When you cut them, leave this end piece attached here, and then you're going to cut all the way down like this, and then when you turn it around, this end piece will keep it all together. Now we're going to fry off this little lot. I'm just quickly starting, I forgot to mention it, with about a handful, so 50 grams, 70 grams of diced bacon lardons, just because I have them in the fridge. You could use pancetta, or you don't have to use anything of the sort. You can just go straight in with your veggies. So I'll give those a head start, and then I will add in my celery, carrot and onion. I've used a little bit of red onion because I didn't have enough white onion, so either doesn't really matter. When it's nice and crispy, we'll add in the veg. Okay, so the veg is all in. Don't be afraid of high heat. And if you're cooking quite a lot, like I am, I've got 4 packs of about 1.6 kilos of meat that I'm going to add into here. So this was 4 large carrots, 4 large sticks of celery, 4 large onions. If you need to, when it goes into the pan, feel free to add in a splash more olive oil or a knob of butter. Obviously, if you're using bacon or pancetta, then you'll have a certain amount of fat in there. I'm now just going to stick a few bay leaves in. So one per pack. I'm only doing low, or I'm only doing more of everything because I'm batch cooking. I want to fill that freezer of mine. Then I'm just going to pop a lid on the pan and leave it for about 10 minutes. I'm going to turn it down. I'm on quite high heat at the moment, so I'm going to turn it down to like number 4 and just let it sweat for about 10 minutes. Woo, steamy, steamy. So here we go. This has been going for about 10 minutes. You can see everything is quite nice and soft in there and beginning to colour. So I'm going to add the meat in now. Just break it up as best you can. If you prefer to, you can fry the meat off in a separate pan and then transfer it in. I'm not bothered about having browned meat. I don't think it makes a world of difference really for this recipe. Oh, I don't know what that is. Oh no, it's a bit of onion. Yeah, so just get that kind of incorporated with the vegetables. Okay, so now I'm going to go in there with 12, in this case 12 cloves of garlic, so about 3 cloves of garlic per pack of mince. Okay, so this is possibly a bit of a funny camera angle, and you're going to get smoked out if you turn it down for a bit. And I will buy myself a mic. I'm aware that the sound is probably not very good. Anyways, that was the 12 cloves of garlic. I'm going to do a good couple of tablespoons splodge of tomato puree per pack of mince. I'll write the recipe for you at the end. So 1, 2, 3, 4 packs of mince in my case. To be honest, I'm just going to chuck in the rest of the tube. And then I like to cook out my tomato paste just for a few minutes, and that will help. I mean, this is going to be cooked for ages anyway, but that will help eliminate that kind of coppery taste that you get sometimes. So I'll press pause and crank this up on high heat for a couple of minutes. Next, I'm going to add in some oregano. You could use fresh oregano or you could use rosemary or thyme if you wanted to. But for a fairly traditional tasting bolognese, I like oregano, and I'm going to use about a teaspoon per packet. You could use an actual teaspoon if you're not happy guesstimating. So with the salsicci ragu, I use some fennel seeds and some thyme and rosemary. So alternate depending on what herbs you have available and also what you fancy. But I think, yeah, for a standard bolognese, a spaghetti bolognese type bolognese sauce, oregano is a good shout. And the bay leaves I meant to mention earlier, I've put bay leaves in because we've got a bay tree. If you don't have a bay tree, don't go and buy bay leaves, especially for this. But, you know, if you've got some on your spice and herb rack, then chuck them in. Next up, I've got the tail end of a bottle of red wine. I don't know if you can see in there. There's only about 150 mils. We've got it and we're not going to drink it, so I am going to chuck it in. Yeah, see, there's really not a lot. Because it will add a bit of flavour. If you don't drink alcohol, don't use it. If you don't have alcohol already opened, don't bother. Or if you wanted to buy alcohol specifically for cooking, just buy cheap kind of bottom shelf stuff. But just make sure that it's not too sweet and kind of, yeah, cloyingly sweet. A good kind of litmus test, if you like, is check the percentage of alcohol on the back. If it's kind of 11, 12, 13, 14, then that's good. But sometimes you'll get something that's like 5, 6%, and it can taste a bit ribenery, and you don't want that vibe going on, not in your savoury ragu. Next up, we're going to add tinned tomatoes. I always buy good quality tomatoes. These ones are really good, the muti ones, and they're lovely, kind of almost passata. They've got really good, strong flavour. Well, not even strong, but you know, they are just flavourful. You buy cheaper tomatoes, you find you end up using twice as many. So it's kind of nonsensical. These are a different brand, but again, I think they're good. These ones are organic. I'll buy organic where possible. The muti ones aren't organic, but I just think they're super tasty. You can kind of see they're really concentrated rather than fairly watery. So actually in this case, I'm just going to use the 4 tins for the 4 packs of mince that I had. You could, and I do sometimes, use up to 2 tins per pack of mince, especially if you want to make it go further. That is a great shout. And I'll also add in a bit of extra veg, extra carrots, extra celery, extra onions. Even if you think you don't like celery, unless you're allergic to it, do still add it because it adds flavour, and I promise you, once it's all cooked down, you won't taste the celery. So that's it really. I'm going to just add in about half a teaspoon of salt per pack of mince, or you could add in stock cubes, but I think you shouldn't need stock cubes really. And I'm going to add a good grind of pepper, but I won't do that with you now because my pepper grinder takes forever, so I'll do that offline. Then I'm going to pop the lid on here and just ignore it for about an hour. You could chuck it in a slow cooker though and ignore it for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. As long as it's on a low heat, it can't come to any harm. So it's the kind of thing, if I had the oven on, I'd stick it in the oven and leave it there for a couple of hours, or I'd stick it in the oven. I wouldn't leave it on the hob, but I'd stick it in the oven and leave it whilst I go out and do the school run. Hiya. So whilst the lid is on the pan and it's simmering away, actually I've taken the lid off, I need to put it back on. Whilst the lid is on the pan and it's simmering away for an hour, and before I nip out on the school run, I thought I would just say a few words about well, ragouts in general. I should have mentioned in the beginning, in terms of chopping your veg, if you're not proficient at chopping, don't stress, just get a grater and you can grate your carrot, grate your onion, just use the coarse side so it doesn't turn super, super mushy, and then just chop your celery. But also, I really wouldn't worry if it's fairly chunky, it doesn't really matter. I know spaghetti bolognese traditionally is everything's very finely chopped, but for something like the sausage ragu that I did last week, I kept everything fairly chunky because I think it's quite nice, especially if you're serving it with something like a rigatoni or a fairly thick pasta. There's no harm in having chunky veg in there. Obviously, if you're missing celery or carrot, then fine, you could leave them out. They're not a deal breaker. The onion you really do want though, so always keep the onion. You could add in, just to give you ideas, some either dried mushrooms or some fresh chopped mushrooms. If you're using dried, then make sure you rehydrate them in boiling water and use that mushroom soaking liquid. Chuck that in the pan when you put your tomatoes in. What else can I tell you? I think that's about it. As I said, I sometimes add a lot more tomatoes. You can almost double up the tomatoes. I've used my, I've decimated my pantry. I always buy massive packs of tomatoes, but I've just gone through them because I did buy quite a lot of different minced meats in our last food shop to do all this batch cooking. I will lift the lid on this pan later and show you, but whilst I'm here and I'm child free and it's relatively quiet, we'll have this for dinner tonight, and then I will freeze it into Tupperware containers, and we will use it in the future, in the not so distant future, to make lasagna or to serve with pasta, to serve with gnocchi. I will always freeze it into portions that make sense for our family. So I'll do some smaller boxes for the kids and I'll label it, 3 children. And then I will also do some bigger containers that I'll label up 2+3 for 2 adults and 3 children, because that's usually, it will be us that eats it. If we have friends over, I'll make them something a bit more special. So yeah, I just think I feel daft on one hand showing you all how to make ragu or bolognese. I'm sure you know, and it's something that we've all certainly got our own little ways of doing. We will do it slightly differently, but I do think it's an excellent go-to. Like Mondays for us, swimming lessons. Swimming lessons, what are we going to have for dinner? It's so nice to have something waiting in the wings that you haven't got to come home and faff around with. And also in terms of the children, or not even just the children, us as well, I think it's really nice to have something that, as meaty as it is, it's also about 50% vegetables in there as well. And that's also part of the reason, aside from adding flavour, but why I do fairly religiously add that celery, carrot and onion mix, because I think they all add different nutrients. And I'm not a nutritionist, but I am quite on it with making sure that we kind of eat fairly well, fairly healthily wherever possible. And with the kids, if that means sneaking in the veg, then I'm all over that, so be it. I think that's it from me. I will, lift the lid and show you later, but and I will write up the recipe in the comments, and I will somehow try and figure out how to do. I'm not very good with social media in general. It might be that we move over to a YouTube account, because some of these videos are too long and I'm conscious that it's going to be really annoying if you're having to always watch a part 1, part 2, part 3 and so on. So anyway, we'll figure that out, and anybody that's more technical than me that has any suggestions, please holler, and I promise I'll get a microphone, and I promise I will make a concerted effort to say much less. Cheerio for now. There we go. That is pretty good. Just to take away a little bit of the acid, I'm just going to add like a small glass of milk and stir that in. Got a little helper in the background. You don't have to add the milk though, that is completely optional, but it just takes the edge off those tomatoes if need be. And that's it, all done.